Have you ever felt like you gave it your all and it still wasn't enough? You loved with all the strength in your chest. You believed with every part of your soul. You gave everything you had and everything you didn't even know you had. And yet you were left empty-handed, with a broken soul, with silence as your answer. There is a pain that doesn't scream, that no one sees, that you learn to hide because it seems like no one would understand anyway. It is the pain of being ignored while trying to be whole, of feeling rejected even though you give your best, of realizing that the more you try to show yourself, the more invisible you seem to become. She felt it every day, a type of tiredness that goes beyond the body, that weighs on the soul. A lost look in front of the mirror, asking, "What's left of me now?" A feeling of abandonment that doesn't just come from the other person, but from life, from art, from existence. An emptiness that no one names, but that corrodes from the inside out. She lived loving someone who never really knew how to love her back. She remained silent while betrayal passed through her like a dull blade. And yet, she stayed. Because sometimes we wait for pain to turn into recognition, for the presence of the other person to be the reward for so much effort. But one day, something broke. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a fight. It was a silent second, a tear running down into the dark. A thought, "I can't keep quiet anymore." It was at that moment that she made an invisible decision. She decided that if the world didn't want to see her pain, she would show it. Not with words, but with color, with lines, with art. If the world didn't recognize her as a woman, she would become a symbol. If love didn't see her, she would become unforgettable. If pain had no name, she would give it a face. Frida Kahlo did not become an icon by chance. She became a revolution in silence. While the world tried to erase her, she painted her existence with red, blue, green paint and blood. She didn't just want to be remembered, she wanted to be understood. And maybe that's her pain too, because deep down, this story isn't just hers, it's yours too. It belongs to everyone who has ever felt small in the face of a love. That was too big. It's from someone who has already swallowed their tears so as not to bother anyone, of those who have hidden their pain to fit into the space they gave them, from someone who wanted to scream but chose to create. If this story is yours, comment below. I know what it's like to bleed on the inside and smile on the outside. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that there is still time to rebuild, and watch until the end, because there is something in this story that will reach you in the middle. Like, subscribe, and activate the bell, because this is more than content. Here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. If this story has already touched something inside you, imagine what comes at the end. Subscribe now and continue with us. She knew. From the beginning, somewhere inside her, she knew. But she chose not to see it, to pretend it didn't hurt, to pretend it was normal, that he was just like that artists love in a different way, that she needed to accept it, be understanding, be strong. She did this all the time, be strong, to hold what was falling apart inside her without anyone. Noticing Diego cheated, not just once, many times, even with Frida's own sister. And she swallowed it, as if it were part of the package, as if loving someone meant accepting anything, even if it cost her own dignity. She shrank, diminished herself to fit into the space he gave her, and still it was never enough. She didn't yell, she didn't confront, she held it in, she hoarded it, and she smiled. She smiled when she needed to, she smiled in pictures, she smiled at events. She smiled while her chest was in pieces. She didn't want anyone to know how much she was hurting. She didn't want to seem weak. She didn't want any more rejection. But the pain didn't just stay in the heart. The body also hurt. The after effects of the accident followed her every day. The spine, the legs, the belly. The hospital became a home. Pain became routine. The surgeries came one after the other. The recoveries were long, lonely, and frustrating. She tried to have children, but her body wouldn't allow it. I tried to move on with my life, but it seemed like something always came along to knock me down again. Losing one child is too much, Losing more than one, trying, hoping, believing, is devastating. And no one saw it. No one talked about it. She stayed there, quiet, looking at the ceiling, feeling time pass as if everything was slipping away. And she, trapped inside herself, the people around her only saw the woman in colorful clothes. The one who spoke loudly, the one who made jokes, the one who painted different pictures. They didn't see the pain, they didn't see the feeling of being invisible within her own story. They didn't see the woman who was trying to survive with the pieces that were left. They didn't see that she no longer knew who she was. She felt used. Always in the background, when Diego was praised, she was referred to as his woman. Never as an artist, never as a creator. She was there, but she wasn't. She existed, but she wasn't noticed. And inside, it weighed on her. The feeling of having no real value, of being just an extension of someone else. The physical, emotional, and silent pains mixed together. They accumulated and became routine. They became identity, until she no longer knew what it was like to live without pain, without betrayal, without loss. For Frida, rock bottom was not a moment, it was a process, a silent path of small and large losses, of successive falls, of frustrated hopes. She was there, trapped in herself, in her body, in her marriage, in her pain, in her silence, and no one seemed to notice. No one asked if she was okay, and if they did, maybe she wouldn't even know how to answer. She was alone again, the same room, the same pain, another surgery, another day trapped between her limited body and her full head. Time passed slowly. Outside, everything went on. But for her, everything remained still. Diego went on with his life. People talked about him, praised him, admired him. And there she was, lying down, forgotten, invisible. The pain was constant, physical, yes. But it was another pain that weighed more heavily, the feeling of being forgotten. As if everything she felt was unimportant, as if who she was only existed while orbiting someone else. She was not seen as an artist. She was not heard as a woman. She was not cared for as a person. That morning, she didn't have a big revelation. Nothing magical happened, but there was a small moment, and that was when everything began to change. She looked to the side. She saw the mirror. She saw her own image, haggard, pale, tired. But this time, instead of looking away, she stared. She stood there staring at herself, as if asking, "What's left of me?" She reached out. She picked up the brush. It was there, within reach, waiting. The blank screen before her seemed huge, but she didn't think much. She just started. Her hands hurt. Her movements were slow, but she kept going. He painted what he felt. She painted herself with the colors I knew, with the pain that no one saw. It was no ordinary self-portrait. It was a reflection of everything she carried, the wounds, the losses, the frustrations. She painted because it was the only way to get it out, the only way to endure. There, in that simple gesture, she made a decision, without talking to anyone, without writing a promise, without asking for validation. She decided that if no one understood her pain, she would show it, with paints, with images, with courage. It was at that moment that the turning point happened. There was no audience. Nobody applauded. But inside her, something changed. Art was no longer a pastime, it was a necessity. It was survival. It was an answer. She didn't know if anyone would look at it, but it didn't matter anymore either. She didn't paint for approval. She painted so as not to get lost. That was the invisible decision that changed everything. Simple, lonely, real. If you're still here, listening to this story, maybe you're at that point too. Maybe there's something inside you that you need to get out. And maybe your turnaround also starts with silence, with a small gesture, with the choice to no longer hide what hurts you. If this video is speaking to you, subscribe to the channel. Now, because here every story is a safe space, and what comes next will still hit you in ways you don't expect. She kept painting, one painting at a time, without rushing, without promising anything to anyone. The pain was still there, but now it had form, color, and a name. And when she put it all on the canvas, she felt that at least a part of it was coming out of her. The loneliness didn't disappear, but it became more bearable, because now she recognized herself, and that was already a lot. At first, few people cared. They said it was strange, that it wasn't real art, that it was exaggerated, disturbing, difficult to understand. But she didn't stop, because she no longer painted to be understood. She painted because she had to, because it was what was left when everything else seemed to fail. Time passed. A collector saw one of her works and became interested. Then another. People started to look more closely. Something about her paintings was disturbing, in the best way possible. The strong colors, the symbols, the looks. It was too raw, too real, too human to be ignored. Even those who didn't understand it felt it. And that's what started to change everything. Her works began to circulate. In Mexico, then abroad, in New York, in Paris. Artists who had previously ignored her began to revere her courage. Her paintings stopped being just hanging canvases. They became statements, testimonies, voices. She, who was previously known only as Diego Rivera's wife, was now referred to by name, by merit, by presence. Frida Kahlo, strong, unique, unmistakable. Her features became a visual identity. Her image, a symbol. Her pain, a language that crossed cultures, languages, and times. She was invited to exhibitions. She was on the cover of magazines. The MoMA in New York exhibited her work. And in 1953, she had her first solo exhibition in Mexico. Already weakened, she was taken by ambulance to the gallery, but she made a point of being there. Lying on the bed in the center of the room, she smiled, because that was the answer the world was giving her. She no longer needed to explain herself. She was being seen. Finally, people who had called her strange were now moved by her paintings. Those who said it was ugly art were now paying dearly for a work of art. Her words, previously written in silent diaries, were now quoted as phrases of resistance. "Feet, why do I need them if I have wings to fly?" was not just a pretty phrase. It was a summary of the life she chose to live. Frida transcended her own suffering. She did not stop feeling pain. She did not stop facing losses. But she did something that few can. She used all of this to create, to transform, to leave a mark. She became an icon, a reference, history, and Diego. He was still important, of course, but now he was just part of her narrative. No longer the center, no longer the reason. She was bigger, because she decided not to be defined by her pain, but by what she did. With it, today his works are worth millions, but the true value lies in something else. It is in the impact, in the identification, in the echo that his art generates in those who also feel too much, in those who have been rejected, in those who have lost themselves and need to remember who they are. All of this was born from a decision that no one saw, from an ordinary moment, with a brush in hand, a tear on the face, and the choice to never be silent again. That's where it all began, in the silence, in the background, in the invisible. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you hid your pain? How many times you put on a smile when inside everything was falling apart? How many times did you hold back your tears, choke back your voice, keep quiet, just so as not to bother others, just so as not to seem weak, just so as to continue being accepted by people who never saw what you carry inside? How many dreams have you shelved out of fear? How many ideas did you leave for later? How many times have you looked in the mirror and no longer recognized yourself? Maybe no one knows. Maybe you've also learned to hide it. Maybe you're doing it, now sitting, lying down with your cell phone in your hand, pretending that everything is fine. Maybe you've learned to survive in silence, to smile on social media, to respond everything's fine when inside there's only tiredness. But the truth is that this tiredness has a name, it has history, it has origin. And if you've come this far, perhaps this story touched you precisely because, in some way, you saw yourself in it. Not exactly in the colors, the paintings, or the clothes of Frida, but in the feeling of not being seen, in the feeling of doing your best and still feeling like you're in the background, in the fear of never being recognized for who you really are. Have you ever felt like you were born for something bigger but you just can't get out of there? Have you ever had the impression that everyone is moving forward while you are standing still? Have you ever wondered if there is still time? Frida, too. She had every reason to give up. She was forgotten, diminished, ignored. But she decided to continue. Anyway, without knowing where it would lead, not knowing if it would work. She just chose not to keep quiet anymore, and maybe that choice is available to you too. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to have an audience. It could be now, between you and yourself. What haven't you said yet? What haven't you done yet because you're afraid of failing? What part of you is stuck waiting for a sign to wake up? You don't have to be an artist to transform pain into strength. You don't need to have a brush in your hand. Sometimes all it takes is one step, one sentence. An honest conversation with yourself. Think about the times you felt invisible, the times he was rejected, exchanged, forgotten. And now you ask yourself what to do with all this, what to do with this accumulation of feelings that no one sees. Perhaps the answer lies precisely in looking at all of this with courage, not to erase but to transform, not to forget but to give it a new meaning, not to pretend it didn't hurt, but to show that you're still here. If this video is stirring something up inside you, let me know in the comments. Tell me, what do you feel needs to change? What part of your story is still waiting for a change? Maybe writing this could be the first step. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You just need to recognize that there is still something alive in there, something worth seeing, something that, when revealed, could change everything. And if this is happening now, if this story has awakened a memory, a desire, a discomfort, then perhaps this is your invisible decision. Perhaps this is the beginning of your own turning point. If this story touched you somewhere you didn't even know still hurt, comment below. I also carry scars that no one sees. This simple act of writing can be the first step towards transforming what seems like pain into a path, a new beginning. Truth. Leave a like if this story spoke to you. This shows that this space matters, that stories like this need to be told. And subscribe to the channel, not just to follow but to be a part of it. Here each video is a mirror. Each story is a possibility for rebirth. Here every story is a spark. Each video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. If this story has already touched something inside you, imagine what comes at the end. Subscribe now and stay with us. Want to be inspired by more real stories of people who were discredited, humiliated, discarded, and still turned the tables? Click on the video that appears here on the screen and continue this journey of transformation. There is still so much truth to live, and you deserve every part of it.